Remember, the issue is not just about gun control, it's about control. Now, here's your host, Larry Pratt.
And welcome to this edition of the News Hour. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to talk today with the Sheriff of Elkhart County, Brad Rogers. I first met him at a conference in January in Las Vegas of county sheriffs that had been brought together by mutual friend Sheriff Richard Mack, former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. And I really was impressed with the sheriffs that came to the conference, with the conference itself. I think Sheriff Mack is doing something that is very, very central to the preservation of freedom in this country. And it's to take people like Brad Rogers and present what they have done to colleagues from other counties around the country, what they have done in the name of reminding the federal government what the Constitution gives them to do, and of course, by inference, nothing else is given them to do other than that which was given them to do. It's such a simple idea, Sheriff Rogers, that I guess we are kind of simplistic to talk in those terms.
Well, Larry, it's good to be with you today, and yes, it seems so simple, and yet because we don't teach the Constitution in our school system, and we don't teach about oaths of office and what does an oath mean. That becomes quite problematic, especially in the law enforcement realm. And cops refer to it as getting sworn in, so that they have arrest powers and so on. Where that's really not what it's about. And certainly it's a requirement by the Constitution, Article 6, that all public servants are sworn in, including the police officers. But it also includes many others. I, as a leader, as a sheriff, I've taken that oath very seriously and spreading that down through the ranks. And I think that my people are getting a hold of it. They're understanding it. And so we're kind of playing it out in real life here.
Well, that's leadership. And now what I hear you saying is that, the oath does empower the individual taking it, particularly if he's going to be empowered to have a badge and a firearm, but it also, by implication, then, is a responsibility, as you've pointed out, to uphold the Constitution, kind of an arcane notion in our day, but one that's really good to hear people in the law enforcement community more and more talking about, which is what we're hearing at that conference in Las Vegas. I want to get back and talk some more about this new idea, this old idea of upholding the Constitution. Don't go away, folks. First time I met Sheriff Brad Rogers of Elkhart, Indiana, was at a conference of sheriffs, and he reported on something that had happened, I gather, just the month before, when a farmer notified you that he was having some trouble that he hoped you might be able to help him with.
That's correct, Larry, and kind of set the stage for that. It was December 1st, and it was an Amish farmer. We have about 200,000 people. So anyhow, he called me, had no idea who this person was, and said, "I'm having trouble with the federal government. Can you come meet with me?" Well,
now, sure. Is he one of these that eschews so much modern gadgetry that he had to go to a payphone, or did he actually have his own phone?
Well, I think he went to he didn't have his own phone.
No kidding.
He's chosen the plain life, and although he does have some modern milking equipment, just out of, I think, functionality, the rest of it is plain. He's a simple man. He's a peace-loving man, and not looking for a fight or trouble or anything. He's just trying to make a living for his family, and is on a pretty good-sized farm. And I'm not even sure how many cows he has, but it's a nice dairy operation. And come to find out, and again, I had no idea that this was even occurring, but he had been involved in a private contract. Notice I say private contract, with some natural food co-ops in Michigan and Illinois. Now, keep in mind, that's outside of Elkhart County. We're in Indiana, and of course, he's this contract is across state lines. He is distributing raw milk to those food co-ops, and the people who belong to these food co-ops pay a certain amount of money to know that they're getting products from various farmers and suppliers that are natural, and they know if there's any risks. They know of or are aware of the inherent risks of any of that stuff. Well, of course, that was kind of all new to me, and so when I sat at his kitchen table and I looked at the documents and the paperwork from the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration, then I also saw that he had a subpoena from the Department of Justice, and he had been subpoenaed to appear before a grand jury on December 8th and to bring all of his documents and information regarding his production, and he was to appear before a grand jury in Detroit, Michigan. Well, I told him, I said I couldn't really help him with the grand jury because that was outside of my jurisdiction. That was something he was going to have to make a call on. And so I looked over his operation, I looked over his paperwork, and it was clear that he had a stellar, clean operation. And yeah, I'm not a scientist that is a study of germs, but I looked at the evidence in the sense that there was no evidence that anybody was getting sick, as the allegations were trumped up. And then also the inspections. This is the federal government, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Department of Justice are conducting inspections on his property. And most of them have been with consent, but he got to the point where he said enough's enough. Because sometimes they were within a week of each other.
Good for him.
There were numerous inspections.
By the way, did he offer to give you a glass of his raw milk?
He did. Yeah. In fact, I have free milk for life if I want it. I'm just not real close to him. I'm about a 30, 40-minute drive from him, and so it's not real convenient, but I certainly have that. And I've seen him recently, just in the last couple of weeks. He's doing very well, and
Excellent.
Actually business is up. So
Good.
That's good. But anyways, my biggest bone of contention with this whole thing, and where it goes back to my oath of office, and we're not just catching bad guys, but we're protecting the Constitution, or guardian of the Constitution, and that is that the Fourth Amendment, which is be free of unreasonable searches and seizures. It doesn't mean all searches and seizures, just unreasonable ones.
And part of what makes them reasonable is a search warrant.
Yeah, exactly. It's based on probable cause through a warrant and so on. So, anyways, he told us all about that, and I said, "Well, are you ready to stir up a hornet's nest?" He said he is. So,
well, let's get back to the hornet's nest.
That.
Yeah, I think this is a story well worth telling, and hopefully there's some sheriffs listening, or will be directed to the show once it's up on the gunowners.org's website. Talking with Sheriff Brad Rogers of Elkhart County, Indiana, who, as I learned from his report about what you're hearing now, about a farmer in Elkhart County facing the weight of the federal government, and specifically the Food and Drug Administration, sort of a quaint concept that maybe the feds are only able to exercise powers that they were expressly given. And evidently you had the same reaction that I think a lot of the rest of us have had. Where in the Constitution, the federal Constitution, is jurisdiction over food and agriculture and drugs? It just doesn't seem to be something that is readily available for inspection.
Well, of course, that's exactly right, Larry, and certainly, at least among conservatives and those who don't agree in the Constitution, there's that great debate. Of course, all of it seems to stem from the Commerce Clause and the big stretch that has been made, which just boggles the imagination. But that's what they kind of hang their hat on, it seems, and also the Supremacy Clause. In fact, we'll continue the story. Basically, I told I just had the contact from the Department of Justice, and I told the Department of Justice trial attorney, I said, I just understand that you have had inspections here at this farm, and that it's gotten to the point where it's ridiculous. The farmer no longer gives his consent, and you're not to come back onto the property until you have a warrant based on probable cause, or you're going to be arrested or removed from the property.
Oh, Sheriff, you just don't talk to the federal government that way.
Well, I did. And they didn't take too kindly to it, of course, but they don't intimidate me, and they threaten me with arrest, up to 3 years of incarceration if I interfere with the inspections of the farm and so on. But that's just saber rattling. I think that basically, by and large, I work for the government. They work for the government. The Fourth Amendment was for the government to uphold and to adhere to, and I have to abide by it, and they have to abide by it. And
but I would say that your authority is somewhat higher up the food chain, simply because of all of the people that are involved in the discussion. You, the FDA, anybody else that might get involved subsequently from the federales. You're the only one that's been elected by the people.
Well, that's true. The sheriff is the highest law enforcement office in the nation that's elected, and it's not an ego thing. It's not I put my britches on the same way you do, Larry, and everybody else. I'm just a regular person. I eat at the McDonald's dollar menu from time to time, and with my kids, and it's just I'm just a regular person. But I have a job to do, and I took that oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and people are so flippant about that today, it seems, including many other elected officials, whether it's in Congress or even locally. And so I really take it to heart, and I teach that to my officers. And one officer said, that's the gutsiest thing I've ever seen anybody do, is to stand up to the federal government like that. And we've seen quite a bit in our life. We've seen shootings and kick doors in and all this stuff. But he said, that's the gutsiest thing I've ever seen anybody do. And he said, I would never have thought of doing something like that until now. So again, it starts.
And I hope that if he ever goes somewhere and becomes a sheriff, he will take that lesson with him.
Exactly, and that's the exact thing. Is it starts with leaders to be statesmen, to stand up for what is right, for what the Constitution stands for, and what that oath of office means. And whether the tyranny is coming from criminals that are running firearms and so on, or if it's coming from the government, or maybe both.
Yeah, right.
And so they
think Fast and Furious.
Yeah. So I've kept up to date on your articles and stuff on that. So it's just, anyways, the trial attorney though said, now look, the supremacy clause basically usurps anything that the state and local government could put into place.
Usurp would be the proper word, even though he didn't mean to use it, I'm sure, because usurp means an illegitimate taking.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he actually used that word or not, but it was that concept. And
right.
And essentially, I said, well, yeah, if it's in pursuant to the Constitution, in other words, the supremacy clause, our Constitution, and what the federal government has been delegated, that all that is the supreme law of the land. But again, if you turn back on it and you're passing laws or rules that are in violation of the Constitution, then essentially they're null and void.
And now he must have been having green smoke come out his ears about that time.
Oh, man. And, of course, he wanted to talk to my county attorney, and I said, well, look, I'm the sheriff. I'm elected. I run my office, not my county attorney. I have great respect for my county attorney, and I'm not slamming them. But again, they're looking at keeping us out of lawsuits and doing things, sometimes compromises that aren't necessarily something that the people like. So it's those kind of things that that was December 1st, Larry. On December, that was a Friday, Thursday and Friday, I had correspondence. Never a physical confrontation, always through email and letters. And then that following Tuesday, the farmer got a certified letter releasing him from the grand jury, and we haven't seen anybody since.
They must have acted like greased lightning when you drew the line. That tells me that they knew they were overstepping. And once they were called out on it, they probably didn't want to invite a lawsuit.
Well, or arrest.
Well, that too, if they
bluffing,
acted.
they could go ahead and come on into Elkhart County, but I'm not bluffing. So, well.
That is my idea of a welcome wagon. What a nice thing to be able to live in Elkhart County. And I presume that terrible raw milk is still being sold across state line.
It's horrendous, isn't it?
Well, they tried to stop it, but you backward people there in Elkhart County, and a lot of other counties too. I've bought raw milk in my day across county lines, but I can't say across state lines. Talking today with Sheriff Brad Rogers, the sheriff of Elkhart County, Indiana, where some of the farmers insist on producing raw milk and actually selling it, and in some cases across state lines. And Sheriff Rogers has stood up for that activity since there was no prohibition enumerated in the Constitution, no power given to the federal government to prohibit that kind of activity. And so what a breath of fresh air that you, Sheriff, were willing to put your hand up, in effect, and say, stop. No more traffic will go down this road. Road closed until further notice.
Well, we appreciate those kind words. But, and if you search the Internet, put Sheriff Brad Rogers, FDA, you can read all about it. However, this isn't, they paint me, at least the Natural Food Co-ops paint me as some type of folk hero. But I'm not really. I'm just a regular person, just like everybody else. But I emphasize that oath of office, and I mean what I say. And just like I'm really no different in church on Sunday than I am the rest of the week, I try to live my faith and live what biblical standards that I adhere to, and quite frankly, then and so the word means something. Your word means something. It means a bond. It used to be that's all you needed. You didn't need a contract back in those days. So your oath of office means something, and so I'm just trying to kind of bring that back into law enforcement instead of just the concept of getting sworn in.
You sound very much like the kind of people that then candidate Senator Obama was complaining about at a fundraiser in San Francisco in 2008, and he was asked about the difficulty he was facing in the upcoming Pennsylvania primary, and he said, well, a lot of it is because of those people in our party that are bitterly clinging to their guns and Bibles. So I was introduced the other night to a local Tea Party group as their speaker, or one of their speakers anyway, and I was introduced as Executive Director of Gun Owners of America, and so I got up and I said, well, they actually had wanted me to say the invocation, which I was happy to do. I said, well, please bow your heads while you are bitterly clinging to your guns and Bibles, and I'll lead us in prayer. And they all had heard that. I knew I didn't have to explain that one to that group. Tea Party groups are very well informed. Yeah, that's exactly why they're at the Tea Party. But apparently that sense of humor is not shared by the folks at the FDA and more generally other police agencies, I would suspect, at the federal level. And so what you did, I think, is very important, and why I was so delighted to hear your presentation at the Sheriff's Conference. Actually, let's give that group a little credit. It's the Constitutional Peace Officers and Sheriffs Association, CPOSA.
That's the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers.
And Peace, okay.
So SCPOA.
Okay.
Or CSPOA.
Yeah. .org, I think.
Yes.
Run by Sheriff Richard Mack, former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, and I think he's doing the country a great service by getting the word out about the kind of line you drew in Elkhart County. I would say the line seemed to trace right around the county line. Sort of gave county line a new meaning.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Larry, just a quick point. I want to I don't want to give the impression that I'm out to shoot federal agents or anything like that. To the contrary, I mean, this is somewhat of a battle, but it's not an armed confrontation. It's not something that I'm looking for a fight, and it's not something that, quite frankly, every day my department and myself cooperate with federal authorities
Sure.
on issues that are germane to their duties.
But I think
like immigration. We deport people out of our jail, and the FBI, and sometimes we've even had President Obama come in Elkhart County to visit, and so we've cooperated with Secret Service, again with the Constitution in mind. But we got to keep in mind that I'm not acquiescing my authority just because the federal officials come to this location.
You work for the people of Elkhart County, not for the federal government.
Exactly.
And that's a concept that has been blurred probably over the years, but certainly it has been blurred in our time because there are a lot of folks that think, oh, well, if he's from the FBI or some other federal agency, then he's got supremacy, which they were claiming on you.
Yes. And, they said they trumped it, and I said, no, you don't. And and we've had some kind of smaller battles. The FBI came into the county here recently and did a raid on some warrants that were stemming out of prison-type crimes that they were conducting criminal enterprises through prison, and they came into the county, and apparently somebody who was in prison in Elkhart County was associated with that, and so they came in, but they didn't notify the sheriff, and so here you have armed SWAT teams in camouflage clothing. They come in, hit the place, probably with a warrant, but we don't know for sure, and then you have the press and the public calling the sheriff and saying, what's going on? And, of course, if the sheriff isn't notified, then he's in the dark. Of course, the federals leave, and you're there to take over the
mess,
the issue. Yeah. So it's that's something I'm currently battling. I think there was a new FBI agent in Indianapolis, and at that time, so I'll give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt that maybe it was just an oversight, but the sheriffs in Indiana are going to know that we don't take too kindly to that type of thing.
Now, you said sheriffs. Is it the case that many of the sheriffs, if not all, tend to share the same view that you do about who's the top cop in their county?
Well, I think all sheriffs are probably at different levels of understanding and learning. I think, of course, Indiana has 92 sheriffs, and I think that we do have some constitutional sheriffs here, maybe not quite as out front as I am on it, but there's definitely some good men and people that would stand firm of federal encroachments, and
good.
And so it's but again, it's like with any political office, you kind of got to gauge. It's a delicate balance, and I try to say, well, I've taken an oath, and whether it's delicate or not, sometimes you just have to die on that hill, so to speak. But I've also had the sovereign citizens. I've had them come to me and said, we don't need a driver's license, and blah blah blah. But I'm not going to die on that hill. Okay.
Right.
Sovereign citizens, they have a right to believe what they want, I guess. But the Constitution allows the states to create laws about driver's license and registration, and
so even if you're not about to arrest them, they're not going to get any protection if the state police do.
Well, no, I don't think so. Well, no, I think again, it's are they really going to squabble over a driver's license? There's so many other fundamental things. Like
is that where liberty is being threatened in our country most acutely? I quite agree. That's as you put it. That's not the hill to die on.
Right. You got the gun issues. You've got liberty issues that are far beyond. We could go into the nth degree on laws and this and that, and it's like, okay, I can get where a state legislature says, well, let's have licensing to make sure we have safe drivers. I don't know.
Sure.
And so, but it gets into seat belts, and there's all kinds of things.
But to go back to your farmer, the FDA was going to confiscate his equipment and put him out of business. That's rather a serious matter. We're talking about real big consequences.
Indeed. And that's not going to happen in this county. And so if they, unless they have a court order that's based on due process, and if they've done that, then you've got judges that have either compromised or whatever. But even then, you need the executive branch to carry out judicial and legislative orders. So, the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, that's the executive branch.
Talking today with Sheriff Brad Rogers of the Elkhart County, Indiana Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, your department has a website. I don't have it in front of me. If folks want to get some more information about what you yourselves are doing, how do they find that?
Yeah, it's ElkhartCountySheriff.com.
Well, that's simple enough.
And Elkhart is ELKHART.
And at one time, at least, wasn't that where a lot of wind instruments were made?
Oh, yeah, it is. In fact, there's musical instrument companies here now.
Okay, well, you've got a law enforcement matter that probably wouldn't be a factor in most of our 3,200 or so counties in the country, and that is you've had to deal with traffic problems relating to horse and buggy. What gives?
Well, obviously, with a large Amish population, when Amish buggies or any horse-drawn vehicles intermix with high-density traffic, vehicular traffic or motor traffic, there's accidents. And about a little over a year ago, we had a terrible situation where a horse-drawn cart, like a pony cart, was being driven by a 10-year-old, and they had several other children on the cart. And they pulled out of a driveway in front of a car traveling at 55 miles an hour, and the 10-year-old driver of the cart and another 8-year-old was killed, and others severely injured. Tragic situation, of course. It's kind of hard to say. The evidence is somewhat inconclusive as to whether or not she could control the horse, and if she was trying to stop, or she didn't even look, or maybe didn't even understand the ramifications of not looking. So it's one of those things that there was quite a bit of public outrage, not so much. I wouldn't say outrage, a public concern, I should say, that we create laws that, again, another crisis, we need another law. And I said, well, I don't really think we need laws. I think we just need education. There have got to have been other
10-year-olds pulling out into traffic, and nothing happened. So
Exactly. So the Amish community, which has a very strong safety organization, I didn't realize that until then, but it's called the Northern Indiana Safety Association, and they actually agreed to partner with me to put out a horse and buggy driver's manual. And that's been distributed around the area, around the several county area here now, and in Elkhart County, and just for the Amish, but also for, as they would say, the English, or those who would like to see what their perspective is. And it's very educational, and it's free. In fact, it's even on our website at ElkhartCountySheriff.com. or on Facebook, Elkhart County Sheriff's Department. And there's a digital version of the manual, and so feel free to look at that and share it around with your Amish friends. Of course, if you're outside of Indiana, the laws could be a little bit different in your state regarding buggy operations and lighting and rules of the road, so you have to take that into account. But it gives you an idea of maybe if a sheriff or police chief or somebody wants to do something like that in their area, they could certainly use that as a template.
Well, it's also of interest to me that your faith has informed, among other things that you do in your life, your view of how to run the jail and the kind of sentencing that you would like to see in use involving criminals, particularly nonviolent criminals. And the last 4 or 5 minutes that we have, let's talk a little bit about that, because hopefully this is something that could be taken up in many other places, not just Elkhart County, Indiana.
Well, the issue of trying to keep ex-offenders out of the jail is not an easy one. It's very hard work because of all the intricacies involved in it. And a sheriff typically, under statute, has no obligation to work with that. But because I live in the community, I'm a conservative of finances. I don't want to build more jails and prisons, and house inmates unnecessarily so. I just felt that it was part of my vision to work on reducing what we call recidivism or reoffense rate, and kind of restoring them and bringing them back into the community. Doesn't mean that we're giving them the world. I'm not talking about a welfare state. I'm talking about empowering ex-offenders so that when they come out, and they are coming out, whether we like it or not. In fact, in Elkhart County, we have 700 inmates coming out of prison every year back to our county. And I'm sure every county has similar statistics depending on their population.
So you'd like to have a shot at helping them get it right when they come out.
It behooves us, because otherwise, if we have anywhere from a 30 to 70% recidivism rate, that means we're re-victimized all over again. We have to pay our cops to arrest. We have to pay our prosecutors to prosecute, our judges and juries, and then the jail side. So it can be a never-ending process. And so my goal is to change hearts and minds to the best we can, not only through jail ministry, and we have an extensive ministry opportunities here in Elkhart County, but also through programming, evidence-based programming that has reduced, as independent studies have shown, has reduced recidivism sometimes more than half if they graduate from those programs. Things like GED, Thinking for a Change, Life After Incarceration, financial education, anger management, and substance abuse programs. So all those things are things that we're trying to put back in as resources back into our system so that they don't come back and double our work. And it's kind of a pendulum that is swinging the other way. There are some people that truly need to be throw away a key type of inmate, and we have those. But then there's others who just, quite frankly, they're not going to spend a lot of time in jail, and if we don't make an impact on them while we have them as a captive audience, then it could be all for naught.
I think that's really encouraging that you found a good response from the churches and other nonprofit groups in the county, that when you said the jail door is open, you can come in and work with the inmates here, that they took you up on it, and it apparently has been making some difference.
I mean, I have over 800 ministry volunteers that are approved to come into the jail.
Wow.
We have over 100 church services or Bible studies a month. And, a lot of hearts are being changed. And some would say, well, there's jailhouse religion. No doubt there is.
Sure.
That's between them and God. But, it's if we can make an impact, even on a few percent, not only for the here and now, but for eternity, it's all worth it.
And in the short run, it has dollars and cents implications, which
absolutely
you as a taxpayer, and I thought that was kind of a nice touch, Sheriff, to say, yeah, I live in this county and pay taxes too. It's in my interest to get this thing running right. So.
Absolutely, but it's hard work, and sheriffs don't typically want to tackle it because it's risky politically, and it's just. But for me, it's just a good fit, and it works for our county. So. Well,
I hope you get reelected by that same 72% that I saw had put you in office this time. My guess is maybe they will, because it ain't broke, so why should voters want to fix it?
Yeah, well, we hope so.
Well, thanks so much, Sheriff Brad Rogers, ElkhartSheriff.com.
Our rights
Elkhart
to keep
County.
and bear arms has never been under as much attack. And gun owners of America are fighting daily in Washington to protect that right. This program, the Gun Owners News Hour, keeps you up to date on that fight. GOA is the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. The Gun Owners News Hour is hosted by GOA's Executive Director, Larry Pratt. Be sure to join us next week. And remember, it's not just about gun control, it's about control.